Santino, Ava, there is a huge problem with Showdown next week. Come here, let me show you. I'm not on it. I was trying to bite my tongue, but I just can't anymore. There is no NXT TNA without Jordynne Grace. There is no partnership. There are no cross-promotional champions. As a matter of fact, there is no Showdown without me setting the stage for it 2 years ago. And you guys let your team captains pick their team members, and they chose wrong. And Santino, letting Kalani Jordan be your TNA women's captain after one TNA show, I'm going to refer you to my urologist because I'm extremely concerned about you. I'm going to say this as respectfully as I possibly can. You two need to fix this.
You know, and we all have our 15 minutes of fame, and I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
And it is for the WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
For the World Heavyweight Championship.
The match and new NWA Heavyweight Champion.
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship.
You know, it does feel like somewhat of a mistake, tragedy, travesty, whichever one that you want to describe it, not to have Jordynne Grace on the team to carry on with a, I guess, promotional rivalry. Hello, folks. This is Mr. Green. You are listening to the Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling podcast, and what you heard at the beginning was a clip out of Jordynne Grace's Twitter, well, X, account, essentially saying that, hey, why am I not on this team? On either team. It was a very grounded in reality promo. Not over the top, not super energetic or anything like that, but it got the point across and that, hey, this probably would not be happening if it were not for me coming here 2 years ago, doing, defending the honor of TNA as its Knockouts champion and so on and so forth. Now, of course, we can't discount the fact that the seed of that was planted about a year prior to that with Mickie James, but no, she makes a very good point in that a large portion of the crossover was done on the back of Jordynne Grace and Joe Hendry. And I guess between the two, Grace is the one that really, really showcased herself during that era, having, some really good matches and traveling around the world, defending the honor of TNA, and then she gets the call to go to NXT, and she's, been there. And of course, she's not going to just walk in and be the top name immediately, but she has a name, and she is continued to do what Jordynne Grace does. So, I mean, it'd be interesting to see what this does for her, whether she'll flip and turn heel or what have you, et cetera, et cetera. Now, of course, I know if you're listening to this podcast, you probably tuned in to hear something about WOW, but quite honestly, in the last couple of weeks, WOW has been very boring. It's hard enough, week to week when they have ill-gotten creative. But the creative doesn't necessarily mean that the matches are bad. It just means that the creative has been crap. And then the participants have to go out there and try to do the best that they can within confines of said creative. I honestly do not expect that to change. But these last few weeks, it has been nothing but clip shows. And that has just not been exciting at all. I'm sorry to say. I know there's some people out there that's probably like, oh, it's been great, because they always have that. But it has just not been a fun show. And of course, we're going to get off into all of that. But if you're talking from, oh my gosh, where are we? From September 6th to current. And as of right now, I'm recording a month later. It is from the moment that the last main event was Classmaster versus Nikki Nashville, which here we are a month later, still no word on who won that match at all. They just dropped it and didn't give anybody anything. And then they went right off into clip shows. It's been boring. It's been boring. This is a terrible lead-in to what's supposed to be their big premiere show or whatever. This is awful. However, I mean, was it anything that I didn't expect? No, I didn't. I am surprised that it went through the measure of doing an entire month worth of clip shows. And the clip shows in and of themselves aren't bad. It's basically built around one topic. It's not like they took 2 or 3 angles and like, hey, this week we're featuring how did Tormenta get here? Or this week we're going to feature the road to Ozzy and Garrett becoming partners. There's no variation on it. It's just been essentially all HollySwag. The entirety of these clip shows have been centered and focused and featured around HollySwag. Let's call it for what it is. Everybody else is just kind of auxiliary to that. So, before we get into this, and yes, this is a triple header because there's nothing really to review. All of these matches I've seen and talked about at some point in time. That the episodes exist. In my opinion of them, I sincerely doubt has changed. A few of them I went back and listened to, and I was like, no, I stand by that. But yes, there's not a lot to really speak on here. But we will do our best and talk about something because I left it alone for several weeks. But this is all I got from them. So I'm like, all right, well, I guess this is the best we're going to do. So before we go off into talking about WOW, and I just finished mentioning something about Jordynne Grace because they have their upcoming event happening. It was titled Invasion, but they renamed it Showdown. And I just felt like, hey, it'd be nice to have a opening that wasn't necessarily WOW related here for a change. I hope that the Showdown PLE or live event or whatever it is does well, but quite honestly, I've kind of removed myself from a lot of WWE stuff. It just so happens that I still watch TNA, so I do get that crossover. And I will watch NXT because it's still on free television. But outside of that, I don't really look at a lot of WWE these days because they have overdone it with the corporate stuff. Overdone it. I mean, we're at the point where we're going to slap on stickers on the table so the tables can be the sponsored, corporate entity for a table spot. And then you look at a PLE and I'm still getting commercials. Like it used to be a point where you order the pay-per-view. Like, I don't want to see a commercial. The only thing that I got from that maybe was an in-house promo for next month. It'll be in SummerSlam or, 3 months from now, it might be SummerSlam or order this videotape. It was all pretty much in-house based. Now they're selling travel logs. They're doing, commercials. They're just so corporate. And then in a perfect world, this would be the time that some other wrestling promotion should rise up and try to take advantage of that because WWE at this stage is not even attempting to be family friendly. And they've made that absolutely clear. Thousands of dollars to see John Cena's retirement. A couple of hundred for cheap seats at pay-per-views or PLEs. If there was an ambitious and strong enough company, this is the time to try and do something about it. And I say that, and I'm just immediately going to wipe WOW off of the table. They will never be able to do that. They're not in a position for it. They don't have the infrastructure to make that happen. And that's, not necessarily a knock on WOW, but it's the truth. They just simply do not have the infrastructure to make that happen. They don't charge ticket prices at all, and they don't tour, so it's nothing that they could sell to somebody. It's nothing like, well, hey, you want family-friendly entertainment? Come see us. We'll be in your town eventually. They can't do that. They don't have it. But getting back to the point, like I said, I just wanted to have something to start off the show just a little differently. And I'd seen Jordynne Grace for a number of years, covered her when she was on the Indies. It's been a long time ago, but I covered her when she was on the Indies. And I'm interested to see where exactly that might go, because that could lead to some variation of a heel turn out of her, and I think that might be some interesting work that she can do. But getting away from that, because I know we're not necessarily fully loaded on WWE stuff. There is a lot to, kind of get into just in wrestling news. So why don't we do that, and then we'll go into reviewing the episodes of WOW. So let's hit it, folks. It's time for the news, views, and updates. So what's going on out there in the world of women's wrestling? Well, one of the things that we had talked about previously or mentioned previously, and it wasn't a big secret. Tony kind of talked about it on, I forget, it might have been a media scrum or it might have been a podcast interview, that he had belts that were already made for their women's division on AEW. And that he only did not bring them out because of the injuries that had taken place in recent weeks. Starting off with the Battle Royal, I believe. Well, that's no longer the case because the women's championship belts have been presented on TV. I want to make it sound like it's presented to somebody, but presented on TV. They've already been shown, and it is out there for a ambitious team to win. I'm happy and I'm not for them to have these tag team championships. I'm happy because, okay, yes, it's good for their women's division to have additional stuff that they can utilize, because some people there are never going to be the AEW women's champion, let's say, or the TBS champion. But they've got so many belts. It would probably be less of an issue if somehow AEW had the restraint to not constantly integrate Ring of Honor into AEW business. But because they do, it comes off like, well, we got a women's championship here. We got, we got a TBS women's championship. We got a tag team championship. We got a Ring of Honor women's championship. We got a Ring of Honor television women's championship. And now a Ring of Honor interim television women's championship, a Ring of Honor pure wrestling championship. Now you got, was it trios? I can't even remember. There's one other one, or at least I think it is. I might be just thinking of or manifesting something in my head. But they have, that's like 7 different titles just with the ones that I named. It's a lot. It's a lot. Because they're never going to get that kind of airtime to show it all the time. It'd be different if they just created their own women's television program or even a YouTube show, if that were the case. Which is what they honestly is what they should do. AEW at this point should just go ahead and make a women's show. It is the only way that those things are ever going to have the prestige and the post that they want them to have. And that women's wrestling in this country is going to get a fair shot, all due respect to WOW. But WOW is not the show for that. Unless they do some significant changes in the next couple of years, and I doubt that is going to happen because they have their mold that they like and they want to stick with it. I'm not saying that AEW would be vastly better, but it would probably get more eyes on the product. And that's the best I can put it, because do I think that AEW would somehow just miraculously book everybody 1,000 times better than they do on WOW? Not necessarily. I do think that they would get better matches. Whether the match is called for or not, but I do think they would get better matches out of it, because they would get television time, they would get promo time, they would get pay-per-view time, where they could have the big banger match or something like that, and 2 hours on Dynamite and Collision and stuff like that. So they would have a far larger platform to sell the idea that our women wrestlers are the best women wrestlers in the world. They would be able to do that easier than WOW would be able to. WOW has to get over the stigma of just being WOW. Most wrestling fans do not give them a lot of credibility to begin with. So if AEW is going to have a women's tag team division, yeah, that's great. I don't necessarily like the fact that it's just another set of championship belts, but it's good for the internal, roster. And that is probably the best thing I can say for them, is if they really wanted to do this, they should just consider, hey, let's do a YouTube show. Let's do an hour weekly YouTube show, wherever it is that we're taping, in front of, let's say, Collision. Whenever they're doing Collision, we should take an hour out of that and just shoot a show. Put Ring of Honor someplace else, find a warehouse, find some small location that they could do that in without, offsetting the balance of what Ring of Honor is. I mean, I think that ship is long sailed. It is not the Ring of Honor that it was, but they might be able to get that back if they start now, and then you can get this thing going, and maybe they'll make an actual dent in American women's athletics. Because I hate to say it, for everything that WOW has attempted to do, I can almost guarantee you that if if AEW, and I guess you would include Ring of Honor in that, but I can promise you, if AEW were to try to do that right now, he would probably garner more attention on his women's wrestling product within 6 months than WOW has done in the last 3 years. Because the eyes of the wrestling world are on AEW. Eyes of the wrestling world are on WWE. It's not really on WOW to that level. There are some, but not a lot. And if one of the major companies decided to dip their toes in that water, well then, yeah, people are going to follow it. People are going to watch it. People are going to report on it. People are going to pass the clips around. People are going to see it on YouTube. It's going to get sent over to other wrestling fans. Once they have one great match that's on TV, that's going to be clicked around from one person to the next. The entire dynamic of what is going on would change. And much like I said for WOW and Evolution, when that PLE was coming around, I was like, they probably internally should be asking for that not to happen. Because I don't know if they would be able to compete against it. In fact, I would sincerely doubt that they would be able to compete against it. Speaking of things that they probably would not be able to compete against, it seems like they being AEW, maybe getting ready for, I was about to say War Games. This is not War Games. Blood and Guts. Blood and Guts is their version of War Games, and I don't know if they've had a women's version of that happen quite yet. But it seems as that's what they're heading towards. It feels like after well, I'm not going to say it feels like, she pretty much made it very loud and clear. Jamie Hayter called out for Blood and Guts. And what are you going to get when you have that? They're probably going to go over the top. They're probably going to do some things that's unnecessary. They're probably going to send somebody else back to the goddamn hospital and, like, oh, well, they're not on TV for the next 5 or 6 weeks because they got hurt. But at the same time, it is going to be a show that could quite possibly draw attention to the product. And if there are women's wrestling fans that exist out there that are looking for a product that they can follow and get behind, it may well turn into AEW's product based on that. Now, I do not know if that would be the tipping point necessarily for some fans to want to tune in and watch an all-female version of Blood and Guts. And just full disclosure, I have not kept up with the feud on AEW between all parties for me to really be able to say, well, there's so much interest in this. I don't know. But let's just assume that it's the normal AEW fan base and they're probably going to tune in droves, just to watch this regardless. That could be a big tipping point for them because even at their lowest, they're probably, they're generally speaking higher than by. Let me give my disclaimer. This I cannot prove. But when we stopped receiving ratings news from WOW, they were somewhere around 200 to 250,000. That was where they just ceased offering up ratings or receiving ratings. So, and I have no reason to believe that they just miraculously shot up the ladder. So based on that alone, on their lowest, AEW is about 300,000 viewers higher on the average. So if they did it and they started getting people to watch, well, then that's going to shoot them kind of away from anything that WOW might be doing. Again, if I'm WOW and I'm their management, this is something that I do not want to happen. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't find some way to counteract it or try to, but I wouldn't want it to happen because it takes away the one thing that they've been able to say for 3 years. But we're the only all-female promotion with a global footprint. That would go away immediately. That would stop the second that AEW made that decision, if they did. This is all hyperbole. This is all fantasy booking, whatever. I'm just saying if they did, that's where it would place them. Sadder news. Apparently, the former Dana Brooke, Ash by Elegance. We saw her relinquish the TNA championship to an undisclosed interest. She did not bring up what it is that has stopped her from wrestling. I did watch the promo. First off, I feel sorry for her that she got to this point that she can no longer do it. I feel sorry because of a couple of reasons. One, as Dana Brooke, I think that she was another one of those faces and names that the WWE pulled out of thin air, wanted to make a wrestler, and then put her in a position where she had to be better than what she physically or psychologically was. She wasn't ready to be put up on the main roster. They just put her there. And that is not something that is uncommon with WWE. They have done it a couple of times. The only difference with them and everybody else is that they can afford to. If you do not go into their main roster prepared to deliver the goods, is somebody waiting in the wings within seconds to take that spot. Every other wrestling promotion doesn't necessarily have that. So Dana Brooke, was put in a position where she, like a lot of them, male and female, sometimes get put up there where they're not necessarily ready for it. And she didn't go through wrestling in the same way that some other people have. Like, I'm going to go through the indies and learn this and get that and find out how to wrestle this style and that style and what is this audience like and what is this audience like, because the audience in certain locations are different than other regions. She didn't really get the chance to go through that. As Ash by Elegance, she was able to pick up a different persona. She was able to find a different way to present herself. She was able to try and prove that she was capable of being a top competitor outside of a WWE influence. Those things were happening for her. And I think she was beginning to find her stride, which is probably one of the perks of going to TNA. If you're coming from WWE, sometimes some people need that. But after winning the championship and preparing to defend it, she had to give it up. And again, this is an undisclosed injury. We have no idea why. We just know that it has been said and it has been brought up again by others. Tommy Dreamer specifically on Busted Open Radio says that she's no longer physically able to compete. That's it. So I don't know what else I can tell you. It sucks. It's terrible. I'm sure it was very heartbreaking for her. As far as I can recall, that was maybe the first, and I guess at this point, the only major singles championship that she won. She was part of the tag team champions for a while, and she put up some strong efforts in that ring. She wasn't bad. She's probably not going to ever go down in history as one of the greatest of all time, but she wasn't bad there. Then she got this, and now it's happened. I'm pretty sure the Elegance brand was probably en route of being the top female heel faction in women's wrestling, but this has derailed that. So, best wishes to Ash, former Dana Brooke. I don't remember her real name right now, so I am sorry to hear. But they did crown a new women's champion that day because they of course they had to. Somebody had to step up and they had to win the championship, and of course that was kind of following. I was about to say Dana Brooke. That is kind of following her saying that somebody in the back. I'm paraphrasing now. I have the utmost confidence that somebody in the back will be able to elevate this championship the way that I had intended to. That essentially is what she was saying. And then that did happen as Kalani Jordan won the NXT Knockouts Championship. You have another NXT talent that is now the proud holder of a TNA title. Well. I mean, what can you say, right? So, as of September 26th, on Victory Road, Kalani Jordan, NXT's Kalani Jordan, is now the current reigning and defending Knockouts champion. Now that I think of it, the Knockouts championship has really kind of developed as a strong lineage. I mean, we're talking about going back to 2007, and at that point, it's been relatively ongoing with no real major serious breaks in between it. I mean, yeah, it's been vacated a couple of times just out of necessity and what have you. But as I can recall, not, I think maybe other than Cody Deaner having it, which was stupid. But other than that, it's been a pretty well-protected championship for the most part. And the names that they've had, and I'm sidetracking here just because it hit my mind. They have a lot of names that have been attached to that. Well, you're talking Jordynne Grace, which we opened up the show with. She was Laurel Van Ness at the time, but Chelsea Green, Gail Kim multiple times, Tessa Blanchard for whatever good or bad that might have done. Who else we got there? That Havoc and Angelina Love, ODB, Mickey James. Did I say Jordynne Grace already? I probably did. Awesome Kong. They've got a who's who of women's wrestling that exists outside of WWE. And I stress that because I'm sure somebody like, well, they didn't have so-and-so. But, you know, there's the WWE group of people, then there's the people that's outside of it. And these were the biggest names that existed outside of WWE at that time. And rightfully so right now. So, hey. Okay. That was a side note. Getting back to some of the other news that's been happening and going on. Like I said, unfortunately, we've had that sad news. The Inspiration apparently has regained the Knockouts Tag Team Championships. You know, I don't know if I've ever really thought that they were going to get another shot at that at all. I thought they were pretty much done. They were there just before they had quit wrestling or took their hiatus. Hiatus sounds better. But just before they took their hiatus, I was like, yeah, that was probably the best place for them. It's the only other location that has women's tag team championships, and certainly women's tag team championships that they wanted to win. But, then they left and the titles kind of floated around, and now here they are. Some years later, and the Inspiration, formerly the Iconics, are now the women's tag team champions of TNA, the Knockouts Tag Team Champions. Now, as I had talked about the single championship with TNA, the Knockouts Championship is a little bit more of a bumpy road. Those championships were deactivated. And they were deactivated for some years. Because at a certain point, they clearly did not care about it. Eric Young was one half of the Knockouts Tag Team Champions, which was ridiculous. But, they had it for a while where they got it like 2013. And I don't believe it wasn't until 2021, according to my notes, that the titles were reactivated. That's a long time. It's a fair amount of time to have those things sitting on the shelf. And wouldn't you know, Fire and Flavor, Kara Hogan and Tasha Steelz was largely the reason that, well, not the reason, but part of the reason that those titles started to mean something. They were knocking out some pretty good matches, and they made themselves a pretty strong team. Now, having said that, getting back to the team at hand, the Inspiration, winning them in 2025. The last time we saw them, what do I have here in my notes here? They were last champions 4 years ago. 4 years ago, when they won at Bound for Glory. How about that? Took a break, came back, won it. Congratulations to them. Hopefully they will maintain the standard of the titles and keep it going and make them worth something. I think in the last couple of years, they have really done a good job of trying to keep the titles something worth watching. And by connection to it being worth watching, something worth wrestling for the the talent. MK Ultra, Spitfire, the Elegance brand, the Inspiration, those were all the last tag teams that won the titles. And again, at a certain point, it becomes a who's who in women's wrestling. Forget the era before it was deactivated. That is way too long. And again, they did not care. Once they got it to the point that Eric Young and ODB were the tag team champions for the Knockouts division, they stopped caring. But the names, Kiera Hogan, Tasha Steelz, Jordynne Grace, Rachel Ellering, Havoc and Rosemary, The Inspiration, The Influence, Madison Rain and Tennille Dashwood, Rosemary and Tara Valkyrie, The Death Dolls, Jessica Havoc and Rosemary and Tara. I guess they had the Freebird rule thing happening there. The Coven. I don't know what happened to Taylor Wilde, but Colleen King was part of that. And on and on. There's others, like I said, Spitfire. They had some real talent that went through there and won those titles. And of the championships, of the tag team women's championships, there's probably an arguable point that if you're going to pick it up from 2021, they may have the strongest lineage of champions that we've seen. Yeah, well, in any case, other things that we got going on, there will be a champion versus champion match that's coming up. We've got Tiffany Stratton and Vacour signed on to do their match at which one is this? Crown Jewel. I mean, they have really pushed this thing, right? That's Crown Jewel and going back to Saudi Arabia, just outside of Saudi Arabia. They make sure that they sell that. But it is the Women's World Champion versus the WWE Women's Champion. And, of course, that might wind up with, what is that, the champion thing, that huge championship belt that they can't even leave the country. They can't even leave the country. I mean, that thing is ridiculously big. Insane. I'm not even sure that anybody could walk around for any great length of time, male or female versions of that belt, and not hurt their back after a while. But I'm assuming that Vacour and Stratton are heading in to wrestle for their version of that championship that they'll get to pose with. They'll get to stand in front of for the pictures and the fight and the pyro and all that good stuff. And then it'll go back into the case until the next year that somebody comes around to do it. My predictions here is I'm assuming that Vacour is probably going to walk away the champion, the winner. I'm going to say walk away the champion. It's not a defendable title. But I'm assuming that she is going to walk away the winner in this particular thing, although I do like Stratton. Stratton is still being made. They have done a lot to try to bolster her. That includes wins over both Charlotte Flair and Trish Stratus. And, you know, that's what it needs when you're trying to get people to take you seriously. You got to beat the people that have credibility under their name. Not just take any Joe Schmo or Jane Schmo in this case and throw them up against the champion and be like, all right, that was a fantastic. No, sometimes you need somebody that's actually earned the credibility of the fans that the new champion can come in there and defeat. And they've given that to Stratton. Vacour came in on the merit of her name working around the world. She was a top prospect. So, you know, different routes, but it all leads to WWE. And in this case, it all leads to them having a match at Crown Jewel October 11th. And as I'm looking, no, you know what? It is not going to be in Saudi Arabia. I stand corrected. Let me rephrase that. Because I just looked it up as I was talking. It will be in Perth, Australia. You know, are they really just not bothering to do pay-per-views and PLEs and American ones? Like every other month, they just leave. We're going to be in Italy. We're going to be in France. We're going to be in Saudi Arabia. We're going to be in Australia. It's like they just are everywhere else in the world, or anybody else that is willing to pay to have them there. You know, let me not start off on that again because I already talked about it, that I'm not really a huge WWE fan these days. Yes, they do have some outstanding angles, and they still got some super talent that's in that company. I just am not going to go out my way to go watch this. I'm not paying, what is it, $30-$40 to get ESPN Plus so I can watch their stuff. I'm sorry, not doing it. Anyhow, we have covered through all of that, and I think I've stalled as much as I can stall. So we're going to do the normal thing. We're going to take the break, go to the Talking the Talk segment, then hit you with a little musical interlude, and then when we come back, we will go off into the full, can I call it a review? Can I review stuff that I've already reviewed? I guess I can. I don't know. But we'll do that. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
It is live action Judy Lee Taylor, and I'm in the great state of Tennessee. You know what I had to do? I had to come to Dollywood. And you guess what? I found a dang fan. Look at this.
Judy, I'm such a big fan.
Hell yeah. What's your name?
I'm Eric.
Thank you so much, Eric, for supporting me. Man, I'm so excited. Y'all go to my website and get some merch, y'all. Next time you see me, I'm going to bring live action BBJ.
ABJ, back here, PPW let loose with Sammi Chaos, still your PPW Women's Champion. Another tough contending fight. I mean, there was a lot of hits in there. She landed some good shots.
She did.
That was impressive.
She came to fight this time.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah, I think single-handedly you are elevating this division and making single-handedly elevating the division, making people bring their A game because you're not here to mess around.
No.
And when they get to the top of the mountain, they realize
they can get pushed off of it very quickly.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of getting pushed off mountains, you were told before you came backstage, Aaliyah James, NXT UK, is coming to anniversary show September 13th, Rise to Glory.
Yeah.
And she's looking to take you out and take that championship.
Yeah, I chat GPT'd her.
Yeah.
She's like 99 pounds. Do you want to know the last time I weighed 99 pounds? Don't answer it! I'm going to say something smart.
No.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm not afraid of, was it Leah James?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of her. Layla Hirsch, clearly. Jem? Is that Jem?
Yeah, Jem.
Yeah, don't. Yeah, no, I'm not afraid of anybody. I don't care who they work for, what they look like, the size that they are. I don't care. Do you think I care? Because I don't.
There it is. Next month, NXT UK star Leah James coming for the championship. Sammi Chaos doesn't care. We'll see you September 13th.
And we are back. Generally speaking, this should be reserved for news, views, and updates, but I just wanted to take a sidebar before I go into review, because generally I don't really bring up wrestlers' deaths or things like that all that often. I've done it, but part of me is like, don't talk about it. Because there's enough depressing stuff out there. But two things I just wanted to sidebar on. One, congratulations to Bret Hart's daughter now being cancer-free. He had posted that a little while ago. So congratulations to his daughter and the Hart family in general. I'm hard-pressed to find anybody, myself included, who has not had somebody who was affected by cancer at least in arm's length. So the fact that she was able to get past that and hopefully, will continue to do so, congratulations to her on that. Also, apparently Lexus King, Brian Pillman Jr., formerly, had lost his brother. I almost don't even know what to say other than, my heart goes out to him for that. He had posted, did Lexus King, and, I'm paraphrasing some of it, that he talked about, he lost his brother that day and a little bit of what they did with each other, playing, Discord together and, co-opting on video games and whatnot. He did talk about that he being his brother was a veteran and I guess suffering from some level of PSD. And he also put in that his last Facebook post was a Franklin Delano Roosevelt quote. It was, "Human kindness has never weakened the stamina or softened the fiber of a free people. A nation does not have to be cruel to be tough." And I guess that was his last post. So, genuinely, my heart goes out to him for that, because that's never fun, to deal with under any circumstances. All right, so now that we got the depressing news out of the way, let's go off into what has been going on with WOW over this last month. I elected to just combine all of these together because I've already talked about them individually on the episodes that they aired originally. For those that are not aware, I don't know how you wouldn't be, but WOW for the last 3 weeks has been entirely clip shows. And if I'm a betting man at this point, I'm assuming that the final clip show is going to culminate with the steel cage match that they have been so proud of and promoting. And I use promoting loosely because it really hasn't come up all that much until the last episode. Or the last episode that aired. So this review or conversation, talking about, whatever you want to say, is going to encompass WOW episode 401. This is the beginning of their new season officially, even though they're showing old stuff. But it is WOW episode 401 titled New Territory, WOW episode 402 titled Daughter's Detour, and episode 403 Stirring the Pot. For me, that is going to be episodes 157, 158, 159. Air dates September 13th, September 21st. September 20th and the 21st, depending on where you were, and the 27th. These clips go back as far as 2022, the beginning of their return to television. So I will begin by saying the same thing that I said about the last time that they had a recap of some feud that took place on their television. That feud was, I shouldn't even say feud, because it was more like a history package. But that package was built around Xena Phoenix and Kara Kai. And I remember writing on there too much irrelevant information and footage. That is exactly what I feel here for all weeks. Too much irrelevant information and footage. Most of this has no bearing on the match that they're trying to promote. Not to say that the matches are bad, but it has no bearing on this. It means nothing to the match that they're trying to promote. I cannot imagine that somebody sat deciding to put this together, saying that we're going to do this for 3 weeks and feel perfectly fine, like this is going to capture the attention of anybody that's watching it so that they will want to see this next thing. I can't imagine that anybody would sit there and do that. What I do imagine is that people sat there and just agreed. Yes, Mr. McClain, that'll be a good idea. Or maybe they weren't even there to hear it. Maybe there was just, victims to the creative that McClain and Selina Majors had. But you would think that at least one of them would be like, maybe we should do something else for these 2 weeks, and then just kind of hit it right before our big match. Then we sell it. But this is all just old stuff. And there's no way I would have sat there and watched. I didn't watch it at work. Quite honestly. Anybody that's listening to this podcast knows that the only way that I'm capable of looking at this now is while I'm at the job. It used to be a point where I could just all right, well, if I miss it, I'll catch it when I go home, or on DVR. That doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't air here. And I'm sure there's other places. Look, if you're in a location that no longer airs that, please let me know. You can shoot me a message directly. You can leave a comment below. But if you are in a location that had WOW and lost it, send me a message, please. Okay, so that is where I am with WOW. I can't watch it unless I'm there. And I'm sitting there looking at this, and it's so boring. All this did for me was remind me of the silliness of the entire saga of the Mother Truckers / HollySwag and the Fab Four. And let's get it clear here. This entire thing is built and centered around HollySwag. This entire thing is built on her. Everybody else that's involved in it just happens to be there. It is all just a recap of her path of joining the Fab Four. And again, it just illustrated how stupid some of this was. Starting with, and again, this goes back episodes right up to 2022, the introduction of the Mother Truckers. When we got to see just the absurdity of how they got in that company to begin with. Lana Star breaks down on Wouldn't You Know It in a side street where no one's around, no traffic, and I don't have the ability to call an Uber or a Lyft or a taxi. I'm this allegedly rich person that's on TV. I have a mansion and I have a hotel that I could just go to just because, even though I'm in the same town, I keep a suite there. And I'm so rich, in fact, that I could just mention my name and they'll just, Lana Star will come up to your suite and here's all the stuff that we just decided to give to you. There's food and your massage table and whatever else is going on. On TV, she's loaded. But yet and still, well, I don't have any money, but I have these tickets to WOW. Never mind the fact that there's like 4 other people in the cars. And not one of them, not one, not the twins, not Penelope Pink, not Vicky Lynn, not one of them had access to a phone or Uber app or Lyft or the ability to call a cab or Cash App for somebody to pay. Nothing. So they sit there and then they get the tow truck and we get introduced to HollySwag and, oh, well, I got to get my mom. Y'all have too many people here and blah, blah, blah. She comes in with a big truck that's not designed to tow anything. But since they don't have any money, they just have her come by so she can give them a ride. What are they doing in Los Angeles to begin with? Anyhow, so they do this, and what payment do they take? And I remember talking about this then because it was so absurd. We don't have any money, but we got these tickets to WOW. And then, oh my God, WOW, are you kidding me? They got tickets to WOW. I can't believe it. Again, if anything, I was like, can you leave that part out of this clip show? Let's not show her being a complete idiot. That she would bypass being paid good money. And if you've ever done towing, and I have, you can get some good money doing that. You can. And I don't know a single driver. Not one. Now, just in fairness to the situation, I'd worked for a company back in the days when I was doing it. So I didn't have to worry about getting paid per tow. I was paid by the hour. It didn't matter to me whether you wanted to lift or not. But for the ones that I knew that were doing it, I was like, there's no way that anyone of them would have ever, short of something like the Super Bowl, bypass getting paid good money for tickets to anything. It would have had to been tickets that were just so absolutely ridiculously, hard to find or super expensive to even remotely come across that idea. The Final Four is in town, and I got tickets to the game. And you can have it if you tow my car. But then again, when I look at it in that way, who would do that? If you paid hundreds of dollars, because believe me, those tickets, any ticket that's worth somebody taking in lieu of payment is going to be too expensive for you to barter with for a ride. So that was hard enough for me to swallow just in that scene alone. Then we get to them leaping over the guardrail and just jumping in the ring and helping and blah, blah, blah. And within this first episode, they re-aired the episode titled A Very Important Main Event. Originally aired March 9th, 2024, and it showed the Mother Truckers versus Miami Sweet Heat for the Tag Team Championships. They also, within this, had a unseen match with Miranda Mirage versus Tika Chamorro, and it's not important. Chamorro was pinned with the Abracadabra DDT by Miranda Mirage. Yay, hey. I wonder will she be back, being that they're going to Las Vegas and all. Then the next match that they show in this recap episode is the Mother Truckers versus Miami Sweet Heat again for the Tag Team Championships, Bills versus Built. This is originally aired in September 31st, 2024. This is where we start getting into the whole rigmarole of, well, we got to work for them now. And how badly this was shot. There are times when they do these segments where I'm like, look, I'm not asking you to break a sweat cleaning the car or sweeping up or washing the dishes or whatever the case. I'm not asking you to do those things. But at least set the scene to where it looks like you're actually doing the job that they're trying to force you to do. These are all things that I said. And it just recapped how terrible this was. Clean the pool. Why? Because it's got a beach ball in it. I mean, she could have literally reached out, grabbed it, and put it to the side. wash this car. And it takes 2 of them to wash the rim of the car. They cleaned on camera. And I'm going to stress on camera because I don't know what they do in their real life. They cleaned on camera like they had never cleaned a thing before. It's ridiculous and stupid. The least that they could have did was, hey, let's put some stuff out here so it looks like they actually have some things to clean. Let's call for lunch, have everybody eat. You take these dishes, put them in the dish in the sink, and when we start up the camera, start washing them. Treat this like it was real. Let's not just take somebody's weave and throw it on the floor in the kitchen where somebody is clearly not going to believe that this would be on this clean floor. Everything else is clean except this one spot that you have to be sweeping over and over again. All of this was done so badly. Just the concept of it being confused as being Lana Star at the hotel from top to bottom. All this did was remind me of how absurd the angle was. That they would find this bag in their locker room. What was it doing there to begin with? And, well, we got to return it. But I know she'll be at this job later on in the week, but let's not do that. Let's go to across town to the hotel that we know that she stays in every once in a while. Because clearly they showed you that she knew that she had a house. But let's not drive there. Let's go to the hotel. And we'll return it to her there. Couldn't leave it at the front desk. Like, hey, when Lana gets here, give her this bag. HollySwag starts dancing around and look at me, I'm Lana Star. And then some idiot walks up and, oh, Lana, well then come on in. You know, just dumb stuff. Things that feel like it was written by a 6-year-old. And maybe that's the audience that they're aiming towards. Maybe that is the thing that they're trying to do. Is like, well, we don't need any adults watching this. Let's just get the kids. Kids don't care. They'll just accept what we give them. And it seems like that's what they aim for. Is like they just accept what we give you. So we got that, and then we got the recap of it. You know, the whole HollySwag being seduced by the $5 luxury scarves and the $2 cheap plastic shades that she got. And like, wow, I never had things like this, Miss Lana. And then off she goes. That's worth bludgeoning her mother in the head with a rock. And Jesse Jones also. And so the new version of the Fab Four is formed with the newest edition, HollySwag. That goes over to the Daughters Detour. And then we got, recaps of Jesse Jones and Big Rig Betty before they were officially known as Big Rigs and Bourbon, I believe, versus Miami Sweet Heat for the custody match. The only thing that made this match palatable is that Swag at least took the time to cut a promo originally and say, hey, look, I don't like being passed around like an old pair of pants. Like, I'm glad that she spoke up and said something. So it wouldn't just be like, all right, we're wrestling for the rights to have you. Like, how does that work? She's an adult. So we got that, and we got the recap of that. She goes and helps Miami Sweet Heat win by wiping her mom in the head with the rock. And there you go. That was originally aired in November 9th, 2024. And the title was Where Do You Belong, HollySwag? Somewhere in this show, WOW stars, they continue to advertise for Las Vegas. This is basically their, hey, come visit Las Vegas and we'll be there too. It's like a commercial for Vegas and Fremont Street. And they've done this a number of times throughout the episode. And we'll get back to that in a moment because WOW will just continue to do WOW things. But again, I'll get to that in a moment. They advertise live events from Vegas. I wrote down, will any of this be live? Now, they may be talking about the people that attend Vegas and see like, well, you can watch it live on these days because we'll be there and blah, blah, blah. But I am certainly sure that it is not airing on live TV. That just is a logistic nightmare. They would not be able to air this on live TV, considering that they air in different time slots in different markets across the United States. So call me, couldn't even think of the word. But call me disenchanted with that. But yeah, and unconvinced. But I sincerely doubt that is going to happen. They're not going to be airing across the country live. The next match that they had on this second version of it was Big Rigs and Bourbon as an official team taking on HollySwag and Penelope Pink with Lana Star in the corner. And Princess Ozzy and Tormenta and Miami Sweet Heat. This is where we get to the winning of the championships. Remember, Big Rigs and Bourbon walks into this as the tag team champions. They also recap the what was that? That was my phone in there. Anyway, we'll leave that in. That's no big deal. All right. They did recap the issues that had begun with the Fab Four. This is when it's like, hey, we got no problem taking on you, but which ones do you want us to take on? She's like, well, of course. And this is Lana Star talking. I'm gonna give you the best team that I have. That's Penelope Pink and HollySwag. Which I didn't like the camera shot because he didn't get the reactions out of Miami Sweet Heat while this is being talked about. Jesse Jones did point it out, but again, it really didn't go much further than that. It went from Lana Star choosing Swag and Pink over Miami Sweet Heat to it being an issue with Miami Sweet Heat and HollySwag. HollySwag became the focal point. That match aired from April 5th, 2025, titled, Well, 4 is Definitely a Crowd. This is when Swag and Pink win the tag team championships. The next match that they had in this recap extravaganza was Ozzy and Tormenta versus Miami Sweet Heat. That aired on April 26, 2025, Sweet Heat's Revenge. And that was also followed with their, I guess, main event of the clip show, Ozzy and Tormenta versus HollySwag and Penelope Pink, which originally aired on May the 10th, titled Tricks and Titles. These three matches, the things that you got reminded of with this is the four-way wasn't bad. And I wouldn't even go so far as to say the matches were bad. It's just how this stuff was strung together. And it was just strung together badly. The whole Ozzy and Tormenta and Miami Sweet Heat match was fine up until the finish. It was like you got HollySwag coming out there with her weapon of choice, the rock and inside the sock. Which even to this day, when we talked about it at the job, is like, well, how is this supposed to work? She gave Lori the rock, she jumps off, she hits her sister, but then she hurts her hands too. How is she supposed to not hurt her hands if she had hit Ozzy in the first place? And why would they need the rock? They had her set up for their finish, which had, nominally been a protected finish. The Fab Jab, for whatever people may think of it, is a protected finish. No one's kicked out of it. But that's neither here nor there. They just did that to move the angle along. Then you got the title match where HollySwag basically overcame all the odds and beat everybody. She survived Tormenta. She survived Miami Sweet Heat coming down there. She survived Princess Ozzy trying to sneak up and roll her up from behind. She won through all of that. I was like, okay, is she still the heel here? I mean, that's pretty damn capable that HollySwag just did. And really didn't have to cheat to do it. She survived the cheating. And then we got to the next set of matches in the next episode. There's more recap of HollySwag and the Fab Four feud. And I don't know how else I can say it. It continued on that it was about Swag and less about everybody else. Which I will just go ahead and say right now. This feels like absolute foreshadowing. Feels like they are foreshadowing the entirety of what's happening here. And when I say that, I mean, I feel like either HollySwag is going to cost her team the win. She is going to turn and I fooled you. I was never a part of you to begin with, which I would hate. But I would think that they might do that too. Or the less likely option is that the team turns on her just entirely. But something related to HollySwag is going to happen. It has to. They have spent way too much time. It has been a month. They have spent way too much time going over this and her being the centerpiece of all of it for it not to have that. So, I don't know. So anyhow, we start this particular week of recap off with that, and McLean talking about the fear that Swag and Pink have of defending against Lindsay and Lori, which I don't recall ever being brought up during this thing. Like, where was that when it was important? Because it would have made more sense. Or it would have at least added some element to us, like, well, we don't want to defend against that. And it's not like they had to say it. They just had to, portray something of that to some degree somewhere. We don't want to be in the ring with them too. But you didn't get any of that. Where was this fear of defending? Because they fought and fought back as much as anybody else. They went to a draw. They went to no contest at least twice. So the narrative of the fear of defending against the Carlson twins just didn't sink in. It did, regardless of what he says. And I've long said this about WOW. The idea that the commentators have to fill in the blanks for everything is something that they should correct. It's not that the commentators cannot say things on behalf of the show to help move the story along, but when it becomes the thing that must happen all the time, then it doesn't help. It doesn't help them. They got to be able to speak for themselves. And then you got them finally speaking on themselves in the recap show. It's like, why is this happening in the recap show? Lindsay and Lori have a promo on this episode that did not air previously. And I wrote down, where was this before? It might have helped me believe in the issues that they had. But where was this before? Where was this promo between Lindsay and Lori prior to this? I still don't like the fact that they intercut the promos. It's like, go to Lindsay, now go to Lori, now go back to Lindsay, now go back to Lori. I was like, I'm still not big on that. If they're cutting the promo, let them cut the promo and then go to the other person. Unless it's some sort of, in this case, recap, but this never aired. So why? And honestly, this might have been the best it didn't start off good with Lori. And her eyes seemed like she was not focused, or like she was trying to remember it, or maybe perhaps read something that's below. But that's why you have him do it, a couple of times. But the end of her promo had more fire to it, and it sounded more convincing. It just didn't start off that way. And it probably would have been a good idea in her case, or either one of them cases, but her in particular, to wear the shades so that you could block out the idea that my eyes are drifting, up and down and around and whatnot. But this match they went to was the twin versus twin match, what they made a big deal out of, and this was also the episode titled Twin versus Twin, May 24th, 2025. It just reminded me of how orchestrated that match seemed. As fine as these two young ladies can be, if there ever was a time that I would point at a match like this looks like they planned out every single thing that they're doing, is probably this one. Especially when they get over into the corner and do the head scissor thing. It felt completely orchestrated. Did not feel like they even were attempting to try to make this come off as real, or we have some issues or angst with each other. They did have the spot in there where Lindsay clotheslines Lord, and it was like, I can't believe I just did that. And Laura, her facial expression, you just hit me. So there is the plus and the perk of that. I just don't know whether this gave them what they wanted. Because the end result that I got here was the thing that I remember somebody in the room asking me, is like, hey, if those chairs went on opposite sides of that ring and they, and they didn't do that particular thing where they grab the chairs and they go to each other and then they turn around and smack the other two, it's like, what were they going to do? What exactly would have been the spot, or how would they have finished this all? Because it seems like it's only the steel chairs that woke them up like, oh, well, no, we don't need to fight each other. Which is why I felt like, it did feel orchestrated. It did not feel like an organic thing. It's like, all right, and when you do that, we'll both get these brand new chairs that we got from Home Depot, and we'll give them to you and try to encourage y'all to bash each other's heads in. Which goes back to the other thing. Why is Penelope Pink and Lana Starr was so willing all of a sudden to be like, I don't like these two anymore. So, yeah, kill each other. Where did that come from? Anyhow, we know how this ends. They turn around, they beat or smack Swag and Pink in the head, and then give their promo that Dave McClain decided to talk through the entire thing. Although, in this edited version, they removed most of it. So good for them. We get a Fremont Street Festival after the match that took place. Fremont Street Festival spot. Again, we're advertising for Las Vegas. Come visit Vegas. Go to our website and, you can get you a hotel and et cetera, et cetera. I would be legitimately interested to see how many people got rooms and traveled to Vegas on the basis of WOW is going to be at the Fremont Street Festival this year. I'm legit really, really, really curious. Did they make any sizable difference? Like, I'm flying in because I want to see this. I doubt that anybody's going to be able to provide that information, but it would be fascinating to learn. Like, you actually flew from New York to Los Angeles to watch this? Oh, okay. But having said that, this is where the first steps of me saying WOW just does WOW things exist. This spot, I mean, you talk about ruining a match without ruining the match. This was it. This pretty much shows you that Penelope Pink is going to turn on HollySwag at some point. It already showed you that. Why was this included? Why was that clip included within the this little video package here? I mean, there's one thing that they had a clip where Pink does this crazy suplex on Swag on the apron and kind of like flips over and drops down so Swag can take this insane bump on the apron to the outside. That's one thing, because you might not be able to identify her in that. But they have a clear shot of Penelope Pink kneeing HollySwag in the face, and they get a close-up of HollySwag after it's done. So I would believe that, okay, if she's kneeing her in the face like that, they're not a team anymore. If they're not a team anymore, it's probably pretty likely that they lost the tag team championships. Why include that? Why is this there? How many times does WOW have to do things like that? We're going to show this B-roll, and we're going to show these people that won the tag team championships who hadn't actually won them yet. For what? How many more times do they have to do it? Or how many more times do they have to do things like that just to solidify the point that we don't give a we don't care about what you think of the show. We don't even care if we spoil the show. And that's pretty much what it is. It's like, we do not care. They have shown that they do not care if they spoil that or not. There's no way that they've done this for a year or over a year at this point and not have shown any concern with this, them not delivering the goods. You know what I mean? How? Why? Somebody in that room has to have known, like, maybe we shouldn't leave this in. It's probably not going to be great for the overall show. Or it's going to be a spoiler. But no. And I get it. I know that when you do the clip show relatively fast, you won't be able to identify that. But my only issue here is that they did not take a fast clip. That clip showed you who won. Well, I'm not going to say who won. It showed you that there has to clearly be some animosity between the two of them at this point. Has to be. So why include it? Other than that, WOW just does not care. So anyhow, you have that to look forward to. Now, we've already read the Fremont Street Festival stuff, that the results of which they did a year ago. So the first chunk of matches that I'm expecting for them to air on TV is probably from this time last year. And then they'll just bleed off into the stuff that they're shooting in October. And then that'll turn around and carry them for the next couple of months, I'm sure. So now they got to find, the ways to route these things together. But if there's anything that I got from it, it's like, okay, we've already spoiled that HollySwag is no longer a part of this team, if nothing else. Now, where else that goes from there, who knows? It would not shock me that they have just reformed the Fab Four, which would be insane. And I really hope that there is some way, somehow, that they can justify what I feel like is about to happen. I already feel like they've already shown me that Tormenta's going to get her 2 wins. If nothing else, she's going to get a win over Classmaster's going to get a win over Mayfield. Then she may just disappear. But outside of that, I'm like, I don't know. We've seen Swag, like I said, get nailed in the face by Penelope Pink. And it's not like they hit it. If you want to see what I'm talking about, go look at the Fights on Fremont Street WOW Live video that they got. It's about a minute long. And it's got the same responses that you would expect every WOW fan to have. This is going to be this is going to be epic. This is going to be a blast. This is awesome. You know, just same stuff. And I will agree that the matches may well be awesome. But don't spoil them. Don't spoil them. Anyhow, moving on. That was their Fremont Street Festival Fights on Fremont promo. Then we get a Lindsay and Lori program. This is a sit-down interview with Nigel Zane. This is where I wrote, where was this promo when it was needed? It ain't needed now. It's buried underneath a clip show. It is not needed now. It's a better promo, but no real strong reasoning behind the cage. That was the next thing I wrote. And because it was no one ran. One of them, I think it was Laura, said they won't be able to run away from us. Like, no one ran. There is no reasoning behind this cage. At least they haven't presented reasoning that works. That's supposed to be the strong reasoning behind the cage to begin with. This is like, oh, well, somebody ran away from it. No one ran. In fact, as I said before, they pretty much fought toe-to-toe with him, face-to-face. They didn't back up at all. So what was this for? And then you got Nigel like, is this the end of the Fab Four? Oh, yeah, Nigel, this is either they betrayed us, which is only going to serve to make them look like 2 complete idiots if they go crawling back. But we'll see how that works out. This was not a great job. It's better use of them opposed to the in-ring promo because they sounded more natural, more like human beings rather than yelling and shrilling at the top of their voice. I'm fine with the twins, but this is probably a better use of them in trying to do the promo. The only issue that I have, the promo should have aired some time ago. I know this is slotted like, all right, and then next week, guys, is going to be the steel cage. You don't want to miss. Yeah, so I get that it was timely to that. But they should have had a moment like this weeks ago to help sell whatever feud that they were selling. And here's the other thing. They don't even come off as angry. They don't. I really wish somebody had been there. It's like, hey, look, here's what you're thinking right now. They turned their backs on you. They treated you like you were secondary, even though you won the championships 4 times and pretty much booted you out of the group. You should be upset about that. You shouldn't be sitting down, like, hey, like you're just sitting for tea. Now, I can get that they, might not want to be overly aggressive and full of angst in this environment, but there does need to be some portion of that promo, or did, I should say, some portion of that promo that would help sell the match. It wasn't enough of that. It wasn't enough to sell the personal issue. It wasn't enough to sell the match in and of itself. It wasn't enough to sell why they were in this match or why they're going to this match. Those things just kind of got lost. Who are we taking on? Why are we in this match? And why does it necessitate this stipulation? those things just kind of got blown past, except for the casual remark. And that's what they should have had more information on that. But what are you going to do? The next segment was another random match kind of put in there. It's cold, but the match was fine. It was Sylvia Sanchez versus Chanchella Chella. My lovely Sylvia Sanchez, and she finally won one. She won it with a power slam. Just scooped her up, floated over, boom. There you go. 1, 2, 3. That's pretty much all that was. The only thing I wrote here was, did this match air before? And Nigel said David's name about as much as ever. So it made it hard to sit through. And I'm going to repeat it now, and I hope that he's listening so he might take it in consideration. Please tone down the amount of times that you say David's name. I am begging you. Please tone down the amount of times that you say David's name. It is not necessary. I know that David McClain is a focal point of the show. All right, I get it. Yay. But he does not need to have his name mentioned at the end of every fucking sentence. Sorry. I hope I remember to bleep that out, although I probably won't. They go into the Fremont Street Festival spot again. They're selling this pretty hard. And then we get Miami Sweet Heat versus Penelope Pink and HollySwag. This is the match where they won by DQ, where Swag pops one of them in the head with a rock. And I wrote, is this supposed to sell the steel cage match? That originally aired June 14th, 2025. The title was Deceitful Divas. And I still stand by that. Is this match, was this show in general supposed to be selling the steel cage match? I have a hard time with that. Nothing about these weeks of television made me feel like I have got to see the steel cage match. And I know that they kind of labeled it this countdown to the cage. You know, they try to make it some kind of a big deal. But I would have far and away preferred that they made some sort of personal issue out of this rather than the novelty of the cage. And that's pretty much all they have done with these matches. They sell the match on the novelty of the match. And by that I mean, hey guys, for the first time ever, it's going to be twin versus twin. They sell you on the novelty of it being twin versus twin rather than some sort of beef or legitimate issue that you could sink your teeth into between Lindsay and Lori Carlson. They sold the match, hey guys, it's going to be mother versus daughter. Again. And this is probably closer to getting a personal issue in, but it wasn't really sold entirely on the meat of that. The participants tried. And that includes Jesse Jones, Big Rig Betty, HollySwag. They tried. But the commentators sold you on it just being, it's mother versus daughter. That's what you want to see. That's the selling point. When it was the beginning of their returning to TV, for the first, it's going to be twins versus twins, the Tonga twins versus the Carlson twins. It sold you on the novelty of these two tag teams being twins. The titles just happen to be in it. You get what I'm going with this. There are times where they can get a little deeper than that. It's rare, but it has happened. But then you also have these times where they just have whatever this surface level thing is, and that becomes the selling point for why you should watch this show or why you should watch this episode. Well, she's going to be wrestling her sister, so that's good enough. In this case, it's like, well, they're wrestling in a steel cage. And we haven't had one of those in 20 years. It'll be worth it. And it makes it very difficult to buy into it. Because everything that they sell is big. And I do want to address that I understand trying to sell pro wrestling week to week. I know I've said this before because I understand that it's not an easy thing to do. Trying to sell pro wrestling week to week without any sort of hallmark event to work as, let's call it a chapter marker. Without having one of those things to lean towards or aim towards, it becomes very difficult to convince somebody that this thing is more important than the last thing, and which is more important than the last thing. How many people out there are going to blow this steel cage match off simply because, well, the last time you told me that there was no way to get out of it, they got out of it. The first time it was the DQ. The second time it was no contest. Third time it was no contest. Why, somebody out there is probably not convinced that this is going to be any different. Why am I tuning in for this? Because it's just another episode, assuming that they stayed tuned through 3 weeks of clip shows to get to this point. I really wish that whatever ratings or whatever it is that they're going off of to justify whether people watch or not would show up. I really do, but I don't think that they're going to ever release those. And I don't know if this helps. I don't know if having this match, this feud, this recap, this re-showing of all these things that people could look at and be like, well, why would they have a problem with that? Like Lindsay and Laura suddenly believing HollySwag and Penelope Pink, like, oh, well, she called you fat. What? My sister said that? I can't believe it. Like, that's absurd. But they've condensed it all down to these clips. So you got people that's watching it. Did that convince them that this is something that I want to see? Because that should be the only objective that these clip shows should have, is elevating whatever match that they got coming up. I am somewhat skeptical whether it will accomplish its goal. I think it needs to be reiterated. There are a lot of talented people that exist on that WOW roster, whether they are veteran talent, whether they're indie talent, or whether they have just gotten in there. There's a lot of talented people. There's some not so good talent too. I'm not gonna sit up there and be like everybody there is great. No, they're not. But there's good talent there. There's some bad ones. But oftentimes, and in cases like this specifically, the creative doesn't help. It just doesn't. I am going to hope that my guesses are wrong. I am going to hope that they deliver something that surprises me. I am going to hope that the countdown to the cage promotion that they have endeavored upon for the last few weeks works for them. But I do not have a lot of confidence that it will. I do believe that this final match is due to be in the, I guess they called it the WOW Arena. Although I don't know if that would be an appropriate name. I mean, they have given up that arena apparently. The clips that they showed advertising the cage showed it being constructed in that arena, in that TV studio. So I can only guess that this is going to be the thing that takes place prior to the jump to Las Vegas, and it'll be the last time. Like, oh, hey, all right, we're off to Fremont Street to do whatever. So my prediction is that they will go into this match. Swag and Pink will finally lose. Whatever it is that's going to take place with the weeks of foreshadowing around HollySwag will probably occur that day. And then we'll go off into Las Vegas, where they will be on opposite sides of the spectrum, one way or the other. That is my guess. You know, before I even continue on, is it me or is there someone that says that this is going to be epic no matter what the match is? Like, I really think that there's some WoW fans out there that overuse certain words. It's like, awesome, and this is going to be epic. It's like that happens all the time. I don't know. If it works for them, good for them. But that's about as much as I can give it. They seem to do that a lot. It reminds me back in the day when somebody would just be like, and literally this, and literally that, and literally. Like, after a while, it's like, I'm guessing that you do not know what literally means. Because you can't apply that to everything, especially when it's not a literal function. That's what it feels like with them, and they're like, this is going to be awesome. This is going to be epic. This is going to be awesome. This is epic. And it may well be, but don't apply that to every single match that WoW does all the time. Anyhow, that is it. That's why I just combined them all into this one thing, because it's just recapping leading up into this big match that they're alleged to have. The only other match that WoW has ever had in its history that was based in a steel cage happened over 20 years ago for them. And that was Thug taking on Selina Majors at the WoW pay-per-view. It is the singular pay-per-view that they've had. And probably with good reason. Because I don't think that the pay-per-view that they produced did very good. Well, I'm not going to say I think. I know it didn't do very good numbers. I already looked them up. It's not. It was a litmus test as to where or why fans would part with their hard-earned money to watch them have a match. And the answer to that was no. They were not. The arena looked good that night, but it was heavily papered, and they did not get a lot of people that ordered it on pay-per-view, which is why one of the reasons it never reproduced itself. However, that particular steel cage match was an interesting piece of work. It was interesting because they had a comically large steel cage. I mean, it was like a Hell in a Cell without the cell top, basically. And it only existed for one reason. At that time, they had a referee that would more or less take the bumps that the women either couldn't or would not take. And that seemed to be like his job. It was almost like that was more important than him being the ref. If he was getting thrown around somewhere, it was that. It was the Thug had to throw him out. Or Cage Heat had to throw him out. Or Slam Dunk got to give him a choke slam. Or, whatever. He was as much there to bump as he was to count a 3. So what I'd like to do right now, because there's really nothing else important in WoW to talk about, is let's go back through their steel cage match, shall we? And let's talk about what happened here that was good, bad, and everything in between. Now I'm going to clip down some of this because I'm not concerned about the entrances and what have you. But we do have to set the tone because there are certain things that WOW did that still somewhat maintains to this day where it can get a little convoluted at times, especially if you're looking at this at a point where you do not know what the angle was of the storyline or this, that, and the other. All right, so throughout the entirety of this season that they had, Thug and Selina Majors was, I guess, the primary feud. They superseded the WOW Championship, which was a travesty of a title match, honestly. I think that the title match maybe like 3 minutes. But in fairness to them, almost every match on that show was probably on the average, maybe 5. You had some that went 3. You had some that went 6. But it was a real testament and a real test on how good the talent was and how much people were willing to buy into this. This is the thing. This pay-per-view is the thing that Jeannie Buss and the WOW internally should be looking at. Because this is about as good a litmus test as they ever had. It's one thing to be able to do your show and have the matches, edit it down, make sure that it's good for TV. It's another to do a pay-per-view or PLE or whatever. Because regardless of angles, storylines, acting backstage, props, this, that, and the other, regardless of all of that, when it comes to an environment like this, the bell has got to ring. And at some point, they got to be able to deliver the goods bell to bell. And this pay-per-view exposed, I would say, 85 to 90% of that roster that they can't do it. That they were incapable of doing it. They had to do a match. They had to do it quick. Get them in, get them out. I would guess there's a significant chunk of them that's probably like that on that roster right now. That there's some that if you had to give them go past 5 minutes, they'd fall apart. Or they wouldn't be able to memorize it. And they would have to memorize it because they don't know how to do the matches otherwise. I fully believe that there's some people on that roster like that. So this is a very much a cautionary tale if you're looking at the entirety of the pay-per-view from top to bottom. The match, which was the main event, the only other steel cage match that they had, like I said, Selina Majors and Thug, it was somewhat convoluted. A, like I said, you had the bumping referee. B, you had Thug and her gang. C, you had Terry Gold, who had just regained the WOW Championship, and she came out as a special enforcer. And D, the comically large steel cage. And the interruption that took place within the course of the match. So what we're going to do is I'm going to try to be as descriptive as possible, but we're going to take this match and we're going to start from the introduction of Terry Gold, who comes down with a ref shirt on and wearing her championship belt. So let me get this thing lined up here. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you should probably see some of that by now. If you're listening to this, again, I'll be as descriptive as possible. So Terry Gold's running down the ramp right now, shaking hands. This is after Majors got on the microphone and called her out like, I'm going to bring her out right now. And, you know. So now the match has started. She's in there. She's slinging punches on her. We see Terry Gold. She's putting the chain on the cage. There's our bumping referee over there in the corner. The house here is full. This is at the Great Western Forum in Cali. But again, by all reports, this was a heavily papered event. So why they chose to do the Great Western Forum to do this is, a whole different thing. They probably should have gotten a smaller venue, but I'm sure he did not want it to look small, even though it wasn't going to draw like that. All right, so back to the match. We got two veterans in here, so we can't argue the idea that they were the main event because they were the most experienced people on the show. Everybody else, as far as I can recall, had little to no experience as a wrestler whatsoever. So it made sense that Majors and Thug was going to be the main event. Why that? I mean, this is another case of the same thing that we're dealing with now. Why they chose to have the steel cage to polish us off, I don't know. And now we see Majors out there doing a blade job. She just went ahead first to the cage, so now we know that she's gigging herself so she can get some blood. And they remain on the floor. This would probably have just been as fine if they had a normal size cage. I'm sure that part of this was the spectacle of look at the size of that thing. I'm sure that had something to do with it. But okay, so now here's the first breakaway. We're clipping over to Ice Cold getting her head shaved in the middle of the main event. And Lana Starr, that was Lana Starr in the pink standing to the side, goading her, right? Into the cage again goes Majors. And I'm guessing that it's been a while since I've seen the Thug trying to get this thing flowing. We got the two angels, the Harley's Angels on the outside. And we have Terry Gold there, which I think at this point she probably did not know what to do with herself because she was holding on to the chain to prevent Harley's Angels from coming in. But it's chained shut with a lock and a key. They weren't going to get in. She didn't have to hold the thing close. But like I said, she probably did not know what to do with herself at that point other than let me just kind of stand here and make sure nothing happens. And then we cut back to this. This is the main event. And it's being interrupted by this. I understand that it was a big angle, but why were they cutting into it? So you can see that these things were not anything new that WOW has done. They've done this recently. Just look at Americana when she came back and they just cut into it for something else. Like, oh my God, they're in the back fighting. It's like, well, that's a great way to sell the return, isn't it? So now we see Major. She's bleeding. She's got color. And we cut back to the backstage. Great television. And it's not like they're not working hard. Ain't expecting them to go flying all over the ring and stuff like that. That's never been their style. Here we go. Back to this. And I forget who I interviewed. I believe it was Riot. She told me that Ice Cold had got a bonus for sitting there taking that. For volunteering to have her head shaved. I mean, head shaved clean. And to her credit, I don't know that young lady's name, but to her credit, she let them shave her clean. Not like that nonsense they did with, I guess now Nikita Lyons, but Faith the Lion is like, we got a haircut match, and then we're just going to, why did they cut back to this? Look at that. Just cut the camera back to him folding up his haircutting apron. That's important. But, yeah, I mean, she deserved credit for that. It was nothing like the other haircut match they would try to do later. Because I've always said, if you're not willing to go through with the stipulation, do not apply the stipulation. So now we've got Major. She's taking a beating. And we've got Terry Gold over there holding on to the chain because, that makes it more efficient. Got a referee on the outside, referee on the inside, got an enforcer there. It's just a loaded environment. Thug, now we just slingshot her in. Boom. She's wiping the blood, right? It ain't pumping just yet, but it's there. And she's going back looking for something else. What it is, I don't know. Like I said, it's been a long time since I've bothered to watch this match. And I can say this just as a, little deterrent. During the time that this match was going on, the steel cage, it was a very in vogue thing in wrestling for people to jump off of the cage. That was probably the primary reason that this thing was as big as it was. It was unnecessarily big, but it was as big as it was. Ever since Mick Foley took the bump off of the Hell in a Cell, it was an in vogue thing for people to fly off of a cage. Whether that be the WWE repeating it, whether it was WCW at the time, or whatever the case may be, it was copied. And WOW was no different. Even though the bump that was taken here, unnecessary. Unnecessary. No one remembers it. No one talks about it. Was not important to the match. Didn't even use the match participants. It goes back to the bumping referee. Thug works well. Look at, just grinding her face into it. This would be the style of match that she needed. And I honestly think a smaller cage where she could have done that and beat her up and slung her around and all that stuff without needing to be on the floor would have been just as good. There she goes again, another slingshot into the cage. Majors, who came in like a house of fire, all of a sudden beaten, bruised, battered, can't stand up. Got Thug grabbing her again. And she gives her a big punch. At this time, when this was airing, I was actually working for a cable company, which was great. Me working for that cable company for those years was fantastic. Why? Because I didn't have to pay for a thing with cable. And free internet, free the full package. This is back in the days when there's full package cables, services. There were no apps and whatnot. But I was getting everything for absolutely free. The only thing I had to pay for was like the tax. So my average cable bill for a fully loaded package, every channel, every subsidiary channel, all the services was like $5 because I was just paying the taxes for the state or the city. Which was why I was able to get the pay-per-views that I was able to get, because now that was the only thing that you could not do at the time. You had to pay for the pay-per-views. They were not responsible for those. That went to other people. That was in demand, and that was the provider, whether that be boxing, UFC, wrestling, whatever. That was them. So you couldn't really shortchange it. However, it still was a great deal. I could go to a month and I could pay $20 for everything. Now, not to question the match, but here we've got Majors. She's taking a beating. She's, getting back. We see it rolling back in the ring. Thug now she's got to bring her back out so she can do that. Don't even see the chair shot because we cut the Ice Cold running out there. Why is this stuff happening? And I will repeat, these are things that WOW has done. This is not a new thing that WOW has produced. Like, we'll just cut into it. And we'll try to put everything that we can into this match. And Ice Cold is there yelling on the microphone saying, David McLean, you did this to me. So we got 3 referees coming out there to cart her away, and she turns the issue about her getting her head shaved away from the participant to David McLean. That sounds familiar. Now we got a clothesline. The referee goes down. He takes a big shot because somehow Selina Majors was able to get out of the way. And now the referee is like, oh, wow, I don't know what's going on here. He's dazed and confused. And now we get this. He gets smashed up against the steel cage by Thug and Selina Majors. Very little of this has taken place in the ring. And now here's where I was like, this is just getting ridiculous. He's like, all right, I got to get out of here. This is just too much for me. So the referee, after taking the clothesline and getting squashed against the cage, decides that I cannot deal with this anymore. I've got to get out of this steel cage. These ladies are too much for me. And Thug just, there you go, saw right there. She just punched him in the face for no apparent reason. And he's trying to get back up again. I'm sure he's telling her, all right, here we go. We're going to do our thing. So now Selina May just finds the strength to give Thug a kick in the guts, and she gives her X Factor, and now the referee's climbing out. And here comes Selina Majors, who cannot climb up the cage initially. She falls down. Oops. He's all the way up there. He sprints up that thing. And now we got to get this shot. And look on the outside. The referee is holding on by one arm. Why is he doing that? Why did he all of a sudden lose his grip? I don't know. Selina Majors couldn't make it up to the top. And so she just starts grabbing at the cage. Why that would make him lose his grip all of a sudden, I don't know. And so she shakes it. Why? Well, I don't even know what that was supposed to accomplish. But she shakes it enough for him to, put air quotes around this, lose his grip, and he falls through a table. So they did their table spot. Again, it was an in vogue thing to do, but it was an unnecessary spot. And I think time has proven that because no one talks. It didn't do anything for a while. It wasn't like the next day people turned around and was like, oh my, you had to see this. The only time that has ever happened is when it happened initially when Mick Foley did it. And it was him. You needed to see it. You have to see this. And it's not even the participants of the match, it's the referee. He took shine off of the competitors for taking this bump and gigging himself. Nothing good came from that. Other than his other than his hospital bill, but nothing good came from that. And of course, because she managed to get this one big move in after getting beaten up for the last 10 minutes, now is all right, I'm ready to cover you since I took the time out to force the referee off of the cage to fall through a table that I saw. And I was responsible for that. And then she's going to turn around and be mad that, hey, why aren't you counting? She had Thug down, went for the cover, counted. No one was there. And, of course, Terry Gold couldn't bother to leave the locked door to go over there and count the fall because if I don't stand there in front of this chain and lock, they'll somehow develop the strength to burst through. So we got open hand slaps by but Selina Majors. She's making the comeback. She's hitting the ropes, kicking the guts. Boom. And she gets hit with a stunner. I forget what she called hers. So she survives and she's going for the cover. And again, Terry Gold standing there. Why is she so fixated on trying to hold this cage door closed? It has a chain on it. And Selina Majors is mad. She's like, oh, what are you doing? And the first thing Gold does is take the towel and try to wipe her face. Thug apparently is a little bit early. So she stops and then she turns around and smacks her with the chair. Now she's got her. And she's telling Gold, all right, hey, get in there. And now they just tell her, she grabs her by the hair and yanks her in. And look at that. Wouldn't you know it, the cage stays shut. Didn't need her after all. Gold doesn't even, all right, there she goes. She corrected it. She started off counting at her feet, which I hate. And she corrected it and went up to her shoulders. Good. Went up to the shoulders, made the count. There we go. But there was the work between the two of them is not the thing in question. How it was laid out and why these things took place was. And that is what I'm concerned with this upcoming steel cage match. I just thought it was appropriate to go back and look at the only other steel cage match that they had to see why. Now, the match is over with. And she's got a pretty good, job going on with the blood and whatnot streamed down her face. And this was where Majors was set to, I would assume, turn heel. We never got it fully taken care of because, they got canceled after that. They alleged that, we had blood on the pay-per-view, so they canceled this. I was like, why would they cancel you because blood on the pay-per-view? It's not like he aired it on TV. And we see Majors beating up on Terry Gold, and we can only assume that this would have led towards a Terry Gold, Selina Majors confrontation, assumably for the championship. We got her just going out there beating up on Terry Gold because she's pissed off. But why would she be pissed off at Terry Gold? Especially when she was the one that caused the referee to fall off of the goddamn cage to begin with. She's beating her up, and of course, these guys are incapable of stopping him because they take the punch, and out he goes like a light. Look at that. Boom. He just went down, and I can't move. And she just firing shots off on Terry Gold's face. A reasonable effort by the participants involved, but a reasonable effort riddled with senseless points within the match. And there we have it. Because the rest of this is not worth talking about. What is there to talk about? The match is 20 years old, and it didn't have a conclusion with what they were setting up past this point. So that's the only other cage match that WOW has had in their long, illustrious history. Will this one be the one that sets it back on track, the steel cage match that people will look at years from now and say, this is why I started watching wrestling? Who knows? Could be. But as of this episode, they're going into their fourth one. This will be episode 404. This is the preview that has been sent. So let us read this, shall we? Season 4, episode 4, The Cage Match. All the drama between the champions, HollySwag and Penelope Pink, and the former tag team champions, Miami Sweet Heat, has led to this. It's the WOW World Tag Team Championship cage match. No one will leave the cage unscathed, but who will walk away as the WOW World Tag Team Champions? And the winners of this vicious feud. The legacy of the fabulous line of stars, once all-powerful faction, hangs in a balance. Well, it sounds like exactly what it reads, a one-match show. And it's the only thing that I can look at and be like, all right, well, maybe this will be, worth watching, perhaps. I don't know. I don't doubt that they are going to give it their all. I don't doubt that they're going to, I shouldn't say gonna, because this has all happened already. I don't doubt that they did give it their all. I don't doubt that they did do as much as they possibly could to make this match worth it. I just wish that they had stronger creative around them to make me care. Because as of right now, I don't. I just don't. Maybe the match itself will change my mind. But as of this particular moment, nope. If I see it, great. If I don't, I really don't feel like I have the desire to I have to watch this match. It just hasn't hit me. So that being the case, let us see where it goes. You've gotten my prediction. I told you what I feel like it's going to be. I said it's been largely focused around HollySwag, and I think that being that they have foreshadowed this for a month is going to affect its outcome one way or the other. You've heard my three options. Either she costs them the titles, them being Swag and Pink. Either she turns, and which would be, I would hate for this to happen. either she turns and reveals like, I did this all along just to drive a wedge between the two of you, or the Fab Four themselves, Pink or Heat, all just decide that, you know what, this little shit stirred is getting what she's got coming to her. One of those three things I predict will happen. We will see. And on that note, if you have not done the normal things that I ask you to do, now's the time to do it. If you listen to this on YouTube, do the YouTube things, like, share, and subscribe. And if you're checking us out as a podcast, we do air on greater podcast platforms everywhere. A rating would be nice. And if you don't know where to get any of those things, you can always go to WPNWrestling.com. WPNWrestling.com is the center place, the centerpiece and the focal point for all the stuff that we do. All podcast episodes have been there. You can scroll through and go back as far as these episodes have gone. And I think with the exception of like 5 episodes, I've covered them all, with the exception of that. And there's also, of course, a 24-hour a day, 7-day a week, constant stream of matches and interviews and otherwise things dating back to 2013 with legitimate stars. You can see the stars before they were stars on that channel, on that stream right now. And I think that will do it. So fingers crossed, ladies and gentlemen. Fingers crossed that this will change my mind when we see the match. Fingers crossed that it will be outstanding. Fingers crossed that it will make sense. And I really have them crossed for that more than anything. Fingers crossed that it will make sense. And on that note, this is Mr. Green saying that this is Mr. Green saying so long, and we will see you on the next go-round. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the WPN's Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling. If you have questions or comments, please contact us via our Facebook or our YouTube channel at the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. If you're new to the WPN, feel free to subscribe to our channel and like our page. We appreciate your support. Thank you again for listening.